This is Coffee with God, and I am Father Jose. Let us begin this day with the Word of God and a short reflection.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 17, verses 1 to 9. The passage is taken from the Message version of the Bible. 6 days later, 3 of them saw that glory. Jesus took Peter and the brothers, James and John, and lifted them up a high mountain. His appearance changed from the inside out, right before their eyes. Sunlight poured from his face. His clothes were filled with light. Then they realized that Moses and Elijah were also there in deep conversation with him. Peter broke in, "Master, this is a great moment. What would you think if I built 3 memorials here on the mountain? One for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." While he was going on like this, bubbling, a light radiant cloud enveloped them, and sounding from deep in the cloud a voice, "This is my Son, marked by my love, focus of my delight. Listen to him." When the disciples heard it, they fell flat on their faces, scared to death. But Jesus came over and touched them. "Don't be afraid." When they opened their eyes and looked around, all they saw was Jesus, only Jesus. Coming down the mountain, Jesus swore them to secrecy. "Don't breathe a word of what you have seen. After the Son of Man is raised from the dead, you are free to talk." The Gospel of the Lord.
Reflections on the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 to 9. In Matthew's Gospel, when Jesus does or says something important, he goes up on a mountain. The last temptation takes place on the mount. The beatitudes are spoken on the mount. He multiplied the loaves on the mount. And at the end of the Gospel, when the disciples encounter the risen Christ and are sent into the world, they were on a mountain that had been indicated to them. In the Old Testament, mountains were sites of encounter with God. Moses had the manifestation of God and received the law on Mount Sinai. Matthew the evangelist aims to present Jesus as the new Moses who delivers the new law to the new people, represented by the 3 disciples. The shining face and bright robes also often recur in the Bible. The Lord is covered with majesty and splendour, wrapped in the light as with a garment, says the Psalmist in Psalm 104. The luminous cloud that enveloped the people was a sign of God's presence among His people while the Israelites were in Exodus through the desert. When Moses received the law, a cloud enveloped the mountain. He also came down with a shining face. Thus, cloud and luminous face are therefore a reflection of God's presence. Using these images, Matthew says that Peter, James, and John have been introduced to the Word of God, which made them understand the true identity of the Master and the destination of his journey. He would not be the glorious Messiah they expected, but a Messiah who would be opposed, persecuted, and killed. In the previous chapter, to the question, "Who do you say that the Son of Man is?" Peter represented the apostles and voiced their conviction that Jesus is the long-awaited Messiah. Now, in the transfiguration scene, the voice from the sky attests to the disciples' conviction that Jesus is the beloved Son, in whom God is well pleased. The voice adds a command: listen to him. In the Bible, the word to listen means to obey. The Father's recommendation to Peter, James, and John, and through them to all the disciples, is to obey, to put into practice what Jesus teaches. It is the invitation to focus one's life on the proposal of the beatitude. Moses was the one who gave the law to his people, and Elijah was considered the first of the prophets. For the Israelites, these two characters represented the Holy Scriptures. The manifestation of the face of God is understood only through the Scriptures. On the Easter day, to clarify the meaning of his death and resurrection to his disciples who were on their way to Emmaus, Jesus will resort to the Old Testament. Beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them everything in the Scriptures concerning himself. We read in Luke chapter 24. Without Jesus, the Old Testament is incomprehensible, and without the Old Testament, Jesus remains a mystery.